Wow, what a good class. Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to this meeting of the Northwest Independent Editors Guild. We are a nonprofit association of about 300 editorial professionals who are scattered all over the Pacific Northwest. And for those of our members who are a little further afield, I want to say we're very, very happy we can welcome you into this meeting. So my name is Jennifer Hager, and I have an announcement before we bring up our speaker. Some of you have attended the fabulous Editors Conference that the Guild puts on every other year. This, I think, because the conference addresses such a variety of topics, it's an excellent professional development opportunity for anybody who works with words. And right now, this year, for the first time, we have decided to hire some professional event coordinators, and they are guiding us in putting together our team for the Eds Guild 2015 conference. There's information back on a table at the end there about the different committees, the subcommittees, and the work of those committees. So some of you have already registered a desire to participate, and you will definitely be contacted if you haven't already, okay? But if you haven't had a chance to say, yes, 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 I want to do it, there are some sign-up sheets on that table. I just want to say, having participated in the last conference committee, I feel like it was hard work, but it was so worthwhile. It was just great. And I just hope you take the opportunity. Okay. About a year and a half ago, several of us editors were just talking about the things that are difficult for us. And we were all a little bit embarrassed. It was just an informal conversation. And after a while, we were so shocked that, my gosh, you mean you don't like to, you don't like to get up and say what you do either? And there were a whole bunch of us. And finally, Kara Freestar said, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could get somebody to come and talk to us about networking for introverts? And we all said, yes. So I found this person. Beth Buelow serves as a guide to introvert entrepreneurs who want to amplify their strengths and build sustainable, energetically aligned businesses. She's a professional coach, ACC. She's an author, a podcaster, and speaker. And although Beth is based in the Pacific Northwest, she does serve introverts worldwide. That's ongoing. Miss Buelow is the author of a book called Insight, Reflections on the Gifts of Being an Introvert. And that book, I'm happy to say, is on the table in the back, available for sale for $10, either cash or check. And next year, she has a second book coming out in November of 2015. It's titled The Introvert Entrepreneur, Amplify Your Strengths and Create Success on Your Own Terms. So let's all welcome Beth Buelow.
That's the best introduction I've gotten all year. That's awesome. And this, I have to take the opportunity because this is probably one of the only groups that I've spoken to this year that would totally appreciate this. So that second book that she mentioned, it's being published by Perry Books. And my manuscript is due December 1st. So 3 weeks from now. And how long have I known when the manuscript was due? June 10th. So I don't really need to say anything else about that. So we're here to talk about introverts and sales, and it will also encompass some networking, as Jennifer said. If you can't, pardon me for reading for those who can see it, because I know there's a swath of people over here who can't, but Sociologists tell us that even the most introverted individual will influence up to 10,000 people in his or her lifetime. What's remarkable about that quote is not the introverted or the 10,000 people, but it's that it was said in the 80s. So think about what's changed since the 80s in terms of our reach. I'm guessing we could probably easily add at least 1 0, if not 2. Because with the click of a mouse, I can reach, 10,000 people in 2 seconds, let alone a lifetime. And this quote encapsulates the two things that I want to bring together, which is being an introvert and being an influence. Connecting with people, influencing them, whether it's to purchase your services, to work with you, to recommend you, to be a colleague and advocate for you. As I get started, I always like to have a few disclaimers, because when we're talking about personality types, it can be a little dicey. People don't like to be categorized as a general rule. They don't like to be put into boxes or labels slapped on them. So I want to assure you that that's not what this is about. This is about simply providing additional information that I hope gives you some perspective, that gives you some new information to consider, to give you some insight into who you are and what makes you tick. Some of it will fit, some of it won't. So I encourage you to take what works and leave what doesn't. And that doesn't just apply to any of the introvert, extrovert groundwork that I lay. It also applies to the networking and sales piece, because we all have a different approach and different experiences. And so I don't want to make any assumptions about what's comfortable for you or what you enjoy doing or what you're skilled at. Simply take the information and decide, how can I adapt that? How can I use that for myself? To start out just by laying that groundwork about introverts and extroverts. As she said, I'm the Introvert Entrepreneur, and I've kind of been carrying the introvert banner now since 2010. And what I've learned is that there's a lot of misunderstandings about what it means to be an introvert, and even what it means to be an extrovert. There are a lot of assumptions on both sides. What I have up here is it says extroverts need socializing, stimulation, and speaking. Introverts need solitude, silence, and space. You'll tell I like alliteration. I had to work hard to come up with all of those. So what you don't see up there is anything that talks about your social skills. It's really, at its core, it's about energy. So the difference between introverts and extroverts is about where we gain and drain energy. Introverts gain energy from solitude, space, and silence, or at least quiet. And extroverts gain energy through socializing and stimulation. And when I say speaking, that's not necessarily what I'm doing up here, but it's that they have to vocalize their thoughts. So they speak to, they speak to think. I always have to think about that first, which shows that I'm an introvert. I have to put the words together before I say them. They speak to think, whereas introverts think before they speak. That's why we get this idea that extroverts are very vocal, very verbose. They're the talkative, very social people, whereas introverts are the quiet ones that aren't saying a lot, but there's a lot going on under the surface. These two terms were coined by Carl Jung. I have him with me tonight. No. My action figure, he's awesome. Carl Jung is a Swiss psychiatrist, psychologist, a lot of you might be familiar with, who back in the early 1920s coined the terms introvert and extrovert. And he came to realize these terms because of an examination that he did of his relationship with Sigmund Freud. He was a mentee of Freud and was seen as kind of the next iteration of Freud, sort of the protege, and will take his place in the psychological, stratosphere. And instead, what often happens with mentors and mentees is that they started to part ways in terms of their perspectives. And Jung was very curious about not just the differences in their philosophies and approaches, but what it was that led them not to be able to bridge even their communication gap. Like, why were their perspectives so different? And that's when he realized that, and came up with those terms, that Freud was a very external person. He's very externally oriented to the world, and that's how he was seeing things, whereas Jung was very internal. And that led him to coin introvert, extrovert, turning inward or turning outward. And in general, it might not feel this way, but the US population is about 50-50 introvert, extrovert. This surprises people often because at least here in the United States, we tend to be a very extroverted society. When you think about what we value in our leaders, the kinds of people that get promoted at work, the people we elect, it can go on. And you think about even, who has children here? So good. So when you've got a little one, I don't have children, but I'm thinking this is true from observation. You're looking for them to be social, right? As soon as they can walk and talk, you're looking for them to be making connections with other kids. And are they getting out? And are they being friendly? Are they sort of squirreling away? And, if they're not doing that, what label do we tend to put on them? Shy. Yep. And I've even had somebody say they were talking to a child psychologist, and he said, you don't know how many parents I have come in who will bring their child in and say, I think they're autistic because they're not socializing. And sure, that might be the case in some instances, but it's also very possible that shyness or introversion is more likely the case. And so because a 2-year-old can't say, Mommy, I don't want to go out and play because I need to recharge my batteries by being alone, we will make these assumptions. And then the child will grow up with that assumption and become an adult who thinks he or she is shy, and then, never quite maybe finds their social groove, and instead thinks, okay, something's wrong with me and I need to be fixed. And that leads to our extroverted society also looking at introverts and saying, something's wrong with you, you need to be fixed. And a big part of my message, and it's not just my message, but it's a growing, chorus of voices that are saying, there's nothing wrong with being an introvert. It's simply different. It's simply about taking care of yourself, acknowledging what you need for your energy and how you show up in the world. And this includes how we show up as entrepreneurs, as business people, as freelancers, as people who want to influence others in what we do. I don't know if you can see this over here. The extrovert saying, I'm staying in tonight. The introvert says, I'm staying in tonight. So if you have any doubt about which end of the spectrum you might fall on, my husband and I are both about equally, on the same place on the introvert extrovert spectrum, very definitely leaning introvert. And we'll say the best part about going out is coming home. And you're an introvert when you get excited about canceled plans. No offense to whomever canceled the plans, but woohoo! So I'd like for you just to take a moment with the people at your table or, folks that are in your row, and just turn and take just a couple of minutes and share, where do you fall on the introvert extrovert spectrum? And before you do that, I just want to reiterate, it's about your preference for where you gain and drain energy. So if you gain energy, if your choice when you are really tired, you want to, and I would say generally, when you're really tired, you want to energize alone, or do you want to pick up the phone and get together with a friend, or somehow seek some stimulation? So the alone person is more likely introvert, the other side extrovert. And there is a category in the middle that we'll be talking about. So think about that too, if you happen to kind of feel like, well, I'm not so sure, I think I might fall in the middle. So take a few minutes to talk about that, and I will chime you back with Carl like that. I should get Carl a helmet. He's going to have a concussion by the time I'm done. So who most strongly identifies as an introvert? Raise them high. Yeah, not surprised. Extrovert? We have a few. Wait, how many? Like three? Three? A few token extroverts. Excellent. Thank you for being here. You're very brave. Anybody who felt like they either didn't know or just too much in the middle to really identify with one or the other? Okay, a healthy handful. Yeah. The term, anybody know what the term is already for that middle ground? Ambivert. Yes, ambivert. Ambivert. So think ambidextrous. You're comfortable, you've sort of got a foot in both worlds. And as we will talk about the sales process and networking, ambivert qualities are going to be something that I think all of us are going to want to cultivate. That's where we're going to be leaning into. Whoops, a little too fast there. So one of the things that I always have to talk about for just a minute is this collapsing of introvert and shy, because it's something that I think can get in introverts' way a little bit. Introversion, as I was saying, was about energy. The definition itself doesn't have anything to do with social skills or social anxiety, whereas shyness is about social anxiety. It's about fear. They can look the same on the outside, and that's often why we will kind of confuse them, and we'll see somebody standing on the edge of the room and think, oh, they're just shy, when really they might just be standing there and deciding, where do I want to go spend my energy? Which group looks like it's going to be the easiest to break into a conversation, or is there somebody I know? Or I think I'm just going to stand and watch. I'm perfectly comfortable just people watching for the moment. So they can look the same on the outside, but I just invite you to not make any assumptions about it, even for yourself. The other reason I think it's often collapsed is because about 70% of shy people also identify themselves as introverted. So there is, definitely a majority of shy people who say introverted, but that also means that 30% consider themselves extroverts. And I would rather be a shy introvert than a shy extrovert, because the shy extrovert wants people, wants that social stimulation, wants to be able to reach out. And someone described for me once what a social extrovert looks like, or I'm sorry, a shy extrovert looks like. And they said, yeah, I have this friend who has a circle of 5 friends, and he needs to see them, several times a week, and they need to go out and, do stuff. But the circle of 5 cannot grow any bigger. And if somebody, and he will not extend himself outside that circle because that's his sort of safety zone, but he really needs those people for his own energy, his own sanity, his own stimulation. So we have an old story as we transition here to talk about, I can see some of you you're reading ahead. So there's an old story that I think contributes to introverts often thinking that they're not cut out to be salespeople, or that they're not cut out to be entrepreneurs, or the social beings that we are. The old story is that introvert equals shy, that it equals antisocial. They're laughing because it says serial killer in waiting, and no good at sales. And, antisocial is another one that's really popular to collapse with introvert, because if you look it up in Urban Dictionary, it says someone who doesn't like to socialize. But Urban Dictionary is not our authority, right? At least I hope not. And, but what antisocial really means is that you are disruptive, you engage in destructive behaviors that are disruptive to the social order. And so to some people, saying no to the party is antisocial. But by definition, it really is a different thing. And then the serial killers in waiting, I just have to mention, because when I started my business, I set up a Google alert for the word introvert because I wanted to see how is it showing up in the media. And so this was back in May, 2010. And the vast majority of stories that came across in my inbox were saying there was a crime committed. The criminal was a loner. People didn't know him very well. We think he was an introvert. I'm serious. So it would be the police officer, the neighbor, the coworker, the boss, the friend who would say this, or the reporter would just insert, so-and-so was an introvert. They really have no idea whether or not they were an introvert. And even if they were, their introversion isn't necessarily, causal to being a serial killer. The good news is, and part of what the news story is that I'm going to share, is that now the vast majority of stories that cross my inbox are about introverts as leaders. Introverts can be great networkers. Public speaking for introverts. It's all much more positive, much more affirming and understanding. There are still definitely stories out there and uses of the word that I, quibble with, such as, an article that says top 10 jobs for introverts, and they decide what the criteria is based on lack of contact with people. Like, that's the sole criteria. Like, you're just going to be buried in the archives somewhere in the basement, in the back where no one ever sees you, and you should be happy. Yeah, no, I don't think so. To debunk a sales myth. This comes from, is anyone familiar with Dan Pink? Yes. His most recent book is called To Sell is Human, and I highly recommend it. He also directly talks about the introvert-extrovert piece, and I'm going to lean on his work a little bit as we go through this information. But he says, according to a large study, the most destructive behavior of salespeople wasn't being ill-informed. It was an excess of assertiveness and zeal. We have this old story, this old myth that extroverts are salespeople, that they're natural salespeople, or the person who has the gift of gab is the one who's the best salesperson. Has anyone seen The Profit on CNBC? I'm kind of an entrepreneur show junkie, and so there's this, billionaire who is saving businesses that are struggling, and he went into one, and I can't remember what the specific business was, but it had a salesperson. I think it was a screen printing business. And he asked to be introduced to the salesperson. And he says, hi, nice to meet you. I understand you're the salesperson. And he said, yeah, I'm great at sales. I love to talk. And I thought right then, that's going to be in bad news. And by the end of the show, he actually kind of came around, but it was interesting how immediately he was equating talking and sales. That was his definition. So the news story, and this is something again that Dan Pink talks about in To Sell is Human, the presence of ambivert qualities, that mixture, that integration of introvert and extrovert is a stronger indicator of sales success than being on one end of the spectrum or the other. So falling in the middle. I used to have a graphic here that was, the ice cream cones. You've got your chocolate, you've got your vanilla, and then you've got your twisted. And we want twisted. We all want to be a little twisted. We want to be that ambivert sort of combination of learning how to say, what am I naturally? And in most cases in here, we're naturally introverted. How can I cultivate some extroverted skills and energy in order to kind of balance that out so that I can take my gifts, take what I have to give to the world, what I actually have a responsibility to share. Because I think if you have a gift, then you have a responsibility. And I'm guessing all of you in here are gifted at what you do and very skilled. And there are people out there who desperately need editors. So please, 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 I want you to show up. And so we need to learn how to kind of marry these two things. So channeling ambiversion. And I don't know if ambiversion is actually a word, I might have made it up, but means balancing between inspecting and responding. So the introvert is the inspector, the observer, the introspective one, whereas the responder is the externally oriented, looking out, having that conversation. And we want to know how to balance both of those activities. The heart of what we're going to do this evening is to explore some do's and don'ts about selling like an ambivert. And get ready to have some activities. You've got pen and paper. So the first one is, a don't is talking, as I was saying just a moment before, and a do is listening. What Dan Pink talks about in his book is that the key indicator of somebody being successful at sales is their ability to listen. Ability to observe, to be curious, to ask questions. In that same episode of The Prophet, you know, the billionaire Marcus went with the salesperson on a sales call. And the first thing the salesperson started doing, hi, you know, I'm Joe, and let me tell you about what I have in my truck to offer you. And so the guy was just sort of standing there, you know, increasingly looking kind of perplexed and, you know, like this. And finally, Marcus intervened and he said, what can I do for you? So his opening was more about, how can I help you? So he started with a question that set things in motion for him to be able to listen. And this sounds very basic. And you probably think, well, I know that I'm supposed to listen more than I talk. And as they say, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. But we get nervous. We think about, you know, what am I going to say? How am I going to present myself? What are they going to think of me? It's natural. We all do it. But when we're in this networking and this sales kind of process, it's important to continually put on use our ears more and ask questions, to continually be asking questions. First exercise that I'm going to have you all do, just to practice this a little bit. And it doesn't necessarily, I don't want you to have a sales conversation. I just want you to meet each other, you know, like networking. I'm hoping a lot of you are at tables with people that you might not know. But I'd like for you to consider this kind of speed networking. At your table, or maybe forming like groups of 3 or 4 if you're in chairs, I want you to spend 2 minutes and find one thing that all of you have in common. And it can't be that you're members of the Editors Guild. It can't be that you're editors or writers or ... Can't be gender. Something a little bit beyond the obvious. Can't be all wear glasses. Can't be all Mac users. Well, I suppose you could all be Mac users. But take about 2 minutes and find that one thing that all of you have in common. I can't whistle. So was everybody able to find something in common with the people at your table? Can you give me some examples? But not the whole group. Any examples of what you found in common?
We both came to Seattle in the same year.
Aha, what year?
82.
82, okay, so it's far enough away that that is an interesting similarity. What about here? You all like chocolate? Okay. All those in favor? You know. What else?
We all like walking outside and it re-energizes.
Re-energizing through walking, awesome. What else? Italian food and movies, great. Anything else?
Desire for perfection.
Oh, anybody else identify with that one? Yeah. How hard was it to come up with something? First thing you said, pretty easy, wasn't it? Yeah. I hope what this demonstrates, especially if you didn't know the people at your table, is that we all have more in common than we think. And that finding that common ground, again, even if you didn't know each other, you all were laughing and engaged with each other and listening and talking. And I'm guessing it was fairly easy. And when you're talking with someone, whether it's in networking or you're, meeting with a potential new client, finding that common ground is a really powerful way to connect with them. It's a powerful way to create a synergy between you and also just to relax. It's not so much I'm over here and they're over there and I don't know anything about them. There's something, and it might just be we both have dogs, or we both have kids in soccer, or we both moved to Seattle at the same year, And so in order to get to that place, we have to do a little bit of small talk, which is usually not the introvert's favorite thing to do. And I encourage you not even to think about it as small talk. I mean, even that word, just like networking, it's rather loaded. When we say small talk, my eyebrows furrow and I just don't like it. What it is it's just getting to know you. It's like a warm up. It's not meant to be deep. I think that's one of the things that often frustrates introverts about small talk. It's like, well, I want to go a little deeper. I want to have a little bit more of a conversation. I want to stay with you longer because I can have something more meaningful here than trying to greet and meet a whole bunch of other people. And so if we can simply accept it for what it is and try not to make it something it's not. Small talk is just small talk. It's just chit chat. It's getting to know you. It's warming up. It's exercising the vocal cords. Look at it instead of that small talk is just saying, I'm going to try to find something that we have in common. And you can even say that to the other person. You can say, hi, I'm Beth. I'm looking for people that I have something in common with. It sounds kind of dorky, But sometimes just even stating our intention and saying, yeah, I'm really, I'm looking for other people who love dogs. That's my quest tonight. It doesn't have anything to do with your business. Doesn't have anything to do with anything that's deep or whatever, but it starts a conversation and it warms things up and it makes a connection. Our second do and don't complicate. Don't be complicated. Never mind. Do simplify. We can really get wrapped up in ourselves in trying to especially explain what we do. We can overcomplicate things by trying to explain every little nuance of what it is that we do. When someone says, "What do you do?" We also can overcomplicate even our, to step back just even from that introduction, we can complicate our businesses that almost lead to that point. I'm a huge fan of finding your niche, finding what's your favorite market, what's your favorite kind of project, manuscript, author, company to work for, and really focusing in on that, because then all of that other complicated stuff kind of falls away. And often people don't like to simplify down too much, but I like to think of it as it's like you're throwing a rock in a pond and there's a ripple. And so what you're deciding when you try to simplify and say, what is my favorite thing to work on? What do I want to be known for? That's like the rock that you're throwing into the pond. And it's that center ripple. And it's where you invest your time, your money, your energy, any of the resources that you can think of. And then when you think about it, okay, then there's another ripple out. And then there's another ripple out. So if I'm investing my time there, that next ripple might be just the next expansion of that group of people. And then there's going to be another expansion. And pretty soon you'll get out to the end where somebody says, well, I know that you said that you only edit, nonfiction vampire books. Nonfiction vampire. Try that. Yeah. That's what happens when an introvert improvises. I know that's the only edit nonfiction vampire books. But I've got a children's story that I love your website. I'd love, you look so wonderful. You've got such great recommendations. Would you consider working with me? And when you've simplified and you've narrowed it down, then you can look at that project and you say, I really like you. And yeah, my best friend just had a baby and I'd love for her to have great children's books. So yes, I will work with you. So it allows you to say yes or no, instead of feeling like you've got to cast this really wide net and waste a lot of energy, a lot of introvert energy, trying to be all things to all people. So part of selling happens not even in the conversation, but before you even get there, as you're thinking about your business and what it is that you want to be, what your, where your gifts intersect with the world's needs in the finest point of what can you be the best at. It's simplifying. There's a quote, and I'm probably going to misquote it, but it says, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have enough time. Is that it? Yes. Pascal. Yes. Blaise. Thank you, Blaise Pascal. Attributed to a wide range of people. For a long time, I thought it was Mark Twain, but that's not it. Quoteinvestigator.com proved me wrong. So it takes a lot of effort to really boil something down to its essence. And we're just going to get a little bit of practice with that right now. I would love to get some suggestions. If you've seen Whose Line It Is It Anyway, this is kind of the same thing. So of what are some objects or items or things that, I suppose those are all the same thing, but that did not exist 300 years ago? Just go ahead and name. Telephone. Internet.
Television.
Airplane.
Kleenex.
TV, Kleenex. Oh, thank goodness for Kleenex. What else? Light bulb. Toilet. Oh, you guys are going to have fun. Okay, what else? Starbucks. Okay, yes. Chocolate. Was there? Oh, I bet there was chocolate 300 years ago. Ah. Candy bars. Candy bars? Okay. And maybe just one more. Wait, one. Sharpies. Okay, so what I want you to do, this is just a start. You get the idea. I want you to pair off. One of you is from the 1700s. The other of you is from 2014. The 2014 person has to explain to the 1700s person what this object is or what this thing is. And you have to remember their context, what they know about, what they don't know about, what's within their realm of understanding and what is not. You might add, like, I saw there's a shopping cart out there. That's another one. So we have more pairs than we have items on here, but we have telephone, internet, airplane, TV, Kleenex, Sharpies, candy bars, Starbucks, toilet, have fun, and light bulb as some examples. So does everybody understand? Did I explain that well? And we'll take a generous 4 to 5 minutes for this one, because this one will take just a minute. So pair off, decide among you which one is going to be which and what item you're going to explain. Don't tell the other person what the item is. Come on back. Let's come on back to center. The teacher trick. Everybody hold up their hands. How was that? Fun? I heard lots of laughter. Was it challenging? What was challenging about it?
Finding the right word. Yes. And deciding how many assumptions you would make and how many assumptions you would just give up on.
That's a good way of putting it. Excellent. What else? Yes. Yes, that's a huge one. What else did you notice?
The thing itself seemed like and other parts of it, like we were talking about a light bulb. And so I wanted to say about you turn it on.
With what?
Turn it on. These intermediary things you have to explain to them.
Exactly. I was thinking about that with light bulb, like, then you flip a switch. Oh, wait, what? Wires? Yeah. Anything else that you noticed about that conversation?
What you were trying to explain to something they would know, but then they came up with these bizarre. I was explaining the airplane, and he thought that I meant a very large kind of balloon. So I started with higher.
Uh-huh. Like a Zeppelin. How does what you noticed here apply to the bigger conversation we're having about sales, talking about yourself, what you do?
Trying to simplify instead of complicate.
Well, yes. Thank you. Absolutely. Yes. Understand what they need so that they can understand understand what they need so they can understand what you're saying. Yeah. What else?
Not making assumptions about shared language.
Yes, that's a huge one. Don't make assumptions about shared language. Because we all, no matter what our profession is, have our jargon and our acronyms and our slang. Absolutely. What else? Anything else that feels important to notice about that? It's challenging to boil something down to its essence, too. And we're going to get a chance to exercise that a little bit here. The last do and don't that we're going to share and that we're going to dive into a little bit more into this question of how do you talk about yourself is the don't is selling, the do is educating. I remember actually the gentleman who became my business coach gave a presentation and he talked about, you're not selling to people, you're educating them. You're sharing, again, you have that responsibility to share what your expertise and your knowledge and your gift is. So if you're simply sharing information, that's a very different conversation than trying to get somebody to do something or get somebody to buy something. And that's why I really shy away from any language that talks about, I need to get more clients or get more work. To use the law of attraction language, it's more, I want to attract more people. And in order to attract people to me, they need to know who I am and what I do. And that is about educating, not about selling. Because I doubt there's anybody in this room that likes to be sold to, but you probably like to receive information so that you can make a choice. And that's really all we're doing. The selling part is like 1% of the 100% of that communication. The rest of it is all about educating. I have up here this question, and this woman's like this. What is the question that we often encounter when we're meeting with people that causes us to kind of do this? We've alluded to it a few times. Oh, how much do you charge? Oh, that's a good one. We're not going down that road tonight, but that's also one it's a good one. No, it's what do you do? What do you do? Because how many of us, no matter how many networking events we've been to, no matter how many conversations we have with prospective clients, when it comes to just putting in a nutshell, simplifying, not complicating, it can, cause us to kind of do this. So And this is another one of my favorite quotes: a confused mind always says no. And that goes again for that case for simplification, because if you're confused at all about how you're articulating what you do, then think about your listener, put yourself in their shoes. As soon as when you start receiving information about something, if it doesn't make sense in a few seconds, usually we shut down. Think about, even if you visit a website, how long do you give it to load before you click away? Think about that. If you think about the clickability or the retention of somebody when they're listening to you talk about what you do, would they have already clicked away? Have you lost them already? This is it's a very short video from Dan Pink. Pay careful attention to each of the 6 kinds of pitches that he identifies, because you're going to have an opportunity at your tables to think about them.
I'm a writer and I find myself pitching all the time, and I wanted to learn how to do it better. I identified 6 new pitches for the 21st century. So the Pixar pitch is modeled on the narrative structure of Pixar films, and a story artist for Pixar named Emma Coates essentially revealed the source code of this. Once upon a time, every day, one day, because of that, until finally, blank. Just fill in those blanks, and it ends up being powerful. We don't see the world only as a set of logical propositions. We see it as a set of episodes. And by enlisting the power of story in a pitch, which is something we don't do that much, it ends up being a very, very effective way to get your message across. Email is a pitch. Get over it. An email is a pitch. It's a plea for attention. It's a plea to engage. The effective email subject lines fall into 2 categories. They have to be either the category of utility, they're very useful to people, or curiosity. They pique people's curiosity. Anything in between, anything that combines the 2, doesn't work very well. Obama did this very well in the campaign. He sent out a lot of emails, but the most popular email, the subject line was, "Hey." Oh, think about how many times you open an email that doesn't have a subject line. Some people end up opening those first. Wow, because they're curious. One of my favorites is the rhyming pitch. It seems kind of cheesy, if not sleazy, which rhymes. Rhymes end up increasing what's called processing fluency. And when people are able to process something more fluently, they absorb it more, they understand it better. There was a trial of O.J. Simpson, former football star, who was accused of murdering his wife and her friend. They found a glove on the crime scene. And so the prosecutor said, well, of course it's your glove, try it on. And he can't get the glove on his hand. In the closing statement, the late Johnny Cochran said to the jury, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." What's remarkable now is that 18 years later, people remember that. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Questions are active, statements are somewhat passive. So if I just make an assertion to you, you listen, okay, cool, you listen. But if I ask you a question, you inevitably have to respond. A great example of this is Ronald Reagan in 1980, where the economy was in the tank, and he could have said, "Your economic condition has deteriorated over the last 48 months. Instead, he said, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" And that's more persuasive. That's more likely to move people, because what happens? They think, am I better off? They start thinking about it, and they begin to articulate their own reasons for agreeing with you. So don't you think we should all use more question pitches? Tweeting is a form of pitching, and there's some evidence showing that the most important thing you can do in pitching via Twitter is give people good information. Even if it's self-promotional, people tend to dig it. And also questions. All right, questions via Twitter end up being really effective too. One of them is the one-word pitch. The idea in the world right now is you want ownership of one word. So when people think of you, they think of that word. When people say that word, they think of you. And actually, it turns out that President Obama did a pretty good job of this, because his word in 2012 was forward. All of the ads, all the public events had that word, forward. And so he was able to distill his message into one word. The pitch process, when it works well, is inherently collaborative. In some ways, pitch isn't quite the same word, because pitch implies I'm going to throw this to you and you're either going to catch it or not. It's much more interactive. We have to think of pitching not as saying I'm going to sell you on this right now, but essentially here's an invitation, an intriguing invitation to have a conversation.
To sell as human is about how to move people with authenticity, with
Thanks. Pretty interesting, huh? I love how they're all very simple. They're all about taking something complicated and boiling it down to its essence. And I want us to spend a few minutes here having some practice with that. This is the pick-a-pitch portion of the night. So we have the one-word pitch, the question pitch, the rhyming, the subject line, Twitter, and the Pixar pitch. Think about, as he was describing those, which one resonated most with you? And don't think about this necessarily as a pitch, as in like I'm saying, hi, my name's Beth. Here's my pitch, whatever, forward. It's not gonna be like that. It's more, think of it, at least for now, think of it, it might be on your about page on your website, or it might be in a brochure or some other collateral that you're giving potential clients, or in a promotional flyer. Something that's written instead of spoken, because the spoken is a whole nother art of refining what you've written. And sometimes it's easier, as we know, to write something down and then hone it from there. So take just a moment, and this is one, maybe do on your own. And after a few minutes, I'll ask you to share with your table mates what you've come up with. Don't expect that you're going to come up with the pitch tonight, that you're going to come up with the perfect words. The idea is just to take one of these as a catalyst to start thinking about it. Another variation on this, has anyone been to Women Business Owners, WBO networking? They do a 5-word pitch, or a 5-word introduction, which is another variation that I'll offer up here as a 7th. And so I think of, if I were introducing myself, I might say, cultivating introvert pride of ownership. That, encapsulates, simplifies, captures a lot of what I do. Does it tell the whole story? Does it say I'm a coach? Does it say I'm a writer? All that? No. But does it get your attention and make you think, what does that mean? I want to hear more. That's what you want to do. You want to provoke and get somebody's curiosity going. So let's take just a few minutes, work on your own, and pick one of these types of pitches. And then I'll let you know when I'd like for you to share with your friends. Then whenever you feel ready, go ahead and share what you have so far with someone at your table or sitting next to you or near you. Setting aside any desire for perfection. Go ahead and wrap up your thought and come on back to the center. That was me. So is anyone willing to share? You knew this was coming, right? Anyone willing to share? Oh, yeah, good. Oh, excellent. Awesome. Awesome. Oh, yeah, everybody wanted. Oh, yes, that's a bravo. Now, how can we top that? I don't know. Time to go home, yeah. Anyone else care to share? Thank you so much for that.
Publication management from copy to press.
Publication management from copy to press. Awesome. Love it. What else?
Writing creative copy and fantastical fiction.
Writing creative copy and fantastical fiction. Another alliteration person. Thank you. It's great. What else? Oh, yes. Tim.
This is a variation on what I actually have on my business card. It's shorter. You mean what you say, I say what you mean.
I love it. Yeah, yeah. While he's gone, let's read it.
Need help putting your best work
Nice. Need help putting your best word forward. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. We shared on your behalf.
So I'm gonna show this thing because I wanted to know what the Pixar pitch is supposed to be. So I tried to create one and in the hopes that you'll actually tell me what it's supposed to do. So once upon a time, a woman set out to write a novel. She hunched over her keyboard each day, tapping words onto the glowing screen. Then one day, she realized that she had created a monster. It ate her time, it ate her sanity, it ate her sense of self-worth. She had to finish it, but she was too tired to figure out how. And that's where I ran out of time.
Awesome. So where do you see her using that kind of copy? Very first page of the website, like the first thing I read. Because if I was looking for an editor and I read that, I'm like, I would think she gets me. Like oh yes. I mean, that's basically what you want somebody to say is, oh, that's me. You want them to see something of themselves in it, or you want to let them know that you feel their pain. I don't know how to finish it. I've created a monster. Those are very subtle ways, and we don't like to talk about tapping into people's pain because we don't want to talk about fear and pain, but that's often what motivates us. That's what causes me to Google, help, I need an editor now. And then when I see somebody who knows that I'm coming from that place, I feel like, okay, good, I won't be judged. There's somebody I can be safe with.
So that's how it's supposed to work.
That's how it's supposed to work. Anyone else before we wrap up? There were a couple, I did a rhyming one, silence doesn't equal violence. That goes back to the serial killer introvert connection. Not sure I would ever use it, but, and I was remembering someone else at that WBO event that I went to where she really caught the attention of the room. She said, don't worry, I speak HGTV. Can anybody guess what she does? Interior design, exactly. It was brilliant. And so I could say, I speak introvert. I speak Chicago Manual of Style, whatever the thing is. That's another way of looking at it as well. What do you speak that maybe other people don't? We're going to have some Q&A in just a moment, but before we go to that, I just want to share a couple of sort of my own promotional things with you in case you want to engage a little bit more. I'm really excited. I'm launching an online, do-it-yourself, very introvert-friendly business assessment. It's based on the discovery process that I work with my coaching clients on, and it takes somebody through every aspect of their business. And it includes some worksheets and videos and audio and other things to help you kind of get a snapshot, the selfie, of how your business is doing and what kinds of plans you want to make. All I have to offer here, I don't have the handouts, but I encourage you to write down the address, theintrovertentrepreneur.com/YBS for your business selfie. I'm going to have pre-registration open on Wednesday with a 20% early bird discount, and the materials themselves will be available starting November 20th. And it's a completely self-paced, confidential, do-it-yourself process. You're guided, you're not alone because I'm with you there virtually as you go. It's a great way to just kind of check in with what's going on with your business. So again, it's theintrovertentrepreneur.com/YBS. Oh yes, I put an arrow. I had to use some animation in this. And then the second one is I just also launched a new newsletter. So if you're interested in getting an e-newsletter from me, right now it's just monthly. It will never be more than twice a month. I can tell you that based on the amount of work it takes. But you can either go to my website and you'll see a way to sign in there. If you like to text, then you can text the word introvert to 33733. It will prompt you to enter your email, and then you'll be signed up for the list. So it's introvert to 33733. So I call this Stump the Speaker because there's always a question or two that I have no idea, and I'm not afraid to admit it. But I'm wondering, any questions or comments, anything that you want to bring to the floor?
Question from online.
Online.
It's not as exciting as it
No, it is exciting.
Whoever had the first pitch, Beth, if you could repeat it into
Yeah.
First pitch. Oh, yes. So the first pitch was for the nonfiction vampire editor. And she chose to say revamp. She chose the one word, like I'm going to own one word, and it would be revamp. Awesome. Cool. Anybody else? Yeah. Tracy.
I have a question about your introverts.
Yes.
In the middle. So I am on the far extreme of introverts. Every Myers-Briggs I've ever had, I'm the one where the doctor's like, wow. I've never
Off the
seen that
charts.
before. So yay. But after a lifetime in corporate America, I know how to extrovert.
Yes.
I do a lot of public speaking. I know how to do the social stuff. I just know I have to take a nap afterward, and I know
Yes.
where to save my energy and when to cancel lunch plans, but I just don't have it in me. So I feel like I have those skills, but I am still
Mhm.
absolutely on the far end of the introvert spectrum. So where you talked about having those skills, being an
Mhm.
introvert, where does one become an ambivert, or is it just you're still an introvert who knows how to extrovert?
I like to think of it as you're an introvert who knows how to extrovert. And that helps you to show up with some ambivert energy. Like you know how to take care of your introverted energy by taking the nap, saying no, leaving a little bit early, like not feeling like you have to close the place down, only saying yes to one networking event a week instead of 3, that sort of thing, or not scheduling anything else around that event. So all those ways that you're taking care of your energy, that's all giving you energy so that you can project energy when it's time to, and I love that you said, I've learned how to extrovert, because that's part, I think, of starting to develop some of that healthy ambivert energy, is looking at introvert and extrovert as verbs instead of just nouns. So I turn inward or I turn outward. And if I'm turning outward as an introvert, I'm doing it from an introverted place. So my extroverting, like right now, I am extroverting almost as much as I know how. It looks very different than if an extrovert were up here extroverting. It would be more the Tony Robbins, dancing on the stage and much more dynamic and throwing your hands around, for some of them. So I think that, then I have cultivated some of that ambivert characteristics, but I'm still, I talk about core and cultivated. So I'm always going to be a core introvert, but I've cultivated enough extroverted skills to do what I need to do in the world. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Other questions or comments? In the back. Thank you.
I'm one of those shy extroverts, and it's torture.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm wondering, for me and for introverts, if you could give us some more kind of concrete tips on those first steps, whether you're in person in a social situation or maybe online ways as well, to kind of make that first step, because the first step is so scary. So how do you kind of find people to talk to, how do you approach them, both virtually and in person?
Yeah.
Can you repeat into the mic?
Yes. She's asking about if you are, whoops, excuse me. That's my warning bell. She's asking that if you're a shy extrovert or an introvert who's having difficulty or feeling challenged with approaching people or getting that conversation started, whether it's online or in person, what are some ways to do that? There are entire books about that particular topic, but I can at least offer at least one tip, and if I can think of another one, I'll add that too. But I love, one of the things that can feel awkward is when we don't have a role or we feel like we don't have a purpose or an identity. It's very powerful to be able to say, I'm going to assume a role, or I'm even going to volunteer for a role. Give yourself something to do and some reason to approach people. Like one of my favorite things to do in social situations is to act as the photographer. It gets me around the room. It gets me kind of meeting people. Or I'll do handouts on the table, or I'll help with name tags, or selling books, or registering people. The other thing is to notice that, as anxious as you feel, it's probably true that there's at least one other person there that's even more anxious than you. If you can assume the role of host, think, if I'm the host of this event, of this gathering, what would be my role? Usually it's to make other people feel more comfortable. So if I say, okay, so, I'm assuming this role of host, and part of my job is to kind of look, to make it my mission to look for that person who looks as uncomfortable as I feel. And then make a point to go up to that person and just introduce myself and ask them something about the event. Like, have you been to this event before? Do you know anyone else here? Did you come to hear the speaker? Have you heard the speaker before? What drew you to this event? How did you hear about it? You know, events are easy that way, where you can just kind of use that as the hook, or even to say, boy, it's noisy in here, you know. And again, you know, to be able to get comfortable saying, assuming, often we can walk into a room where we don't know people and we'll assume we have nothing in common with them. We assume we're not going to know anybody. Instead, I would say, like, assume best intent, assume best outcome, assume I have something in common with every single person in this room and I wonder what it is. And then focus on just having that as your mission, you know, deciding what role you want to play, or deciding I'm going to seek out and find that common ground wherever I can. So that's a very, you know, in a nutshell, one way to think about, and that might spur other ideas. Another thing to do, especially if you're going to an event that's registration is online, like a LinkedIn or Eventbrite, go and look and see who else is going. Often you can see the registration list. And I've gone to LinkedIn events where I could see it all, and then I'll scan the names. I'll look to see where they work or what their business is, and then I'll look at their profiles, and I'll walk into the event with a few names in my back pocket. And then I know I'm looking for those people. I'm stalking them in some way. And then I can say, I saw you were going to be here and I saw your LinkedIn profile. I was really curious about your business. Can you tell me more? You know, so just, you don't have to think of like something super clever to say. It's just introducing yourself and maybe just asking a question. I think we make a big deal out of it. The other thing, has anyone seen the TED Talk with Amy Cuddy? She's a sociologist and researcher, and she talks about body language. Yes. So before we go to an event, and this addresses kind of the anxiety piece, you know, because we can all, even not shy introverts, you know, we can feel a little bit of anxiety and tension before we go into an event or someplace that we don't know people. And Amy Cuddy talks about having a power pose. And we're probably all familiar with this because you've seen Wonder Woman, right? So you've got your feet shoulder width apart, you put your hands on your hips, you put your shoulders back, your eyes up to the horizon, and you stay this way for 2 minutes. I know, it's dramatic. She was like, 2 minutes? Can't do it. And, you know, don't do this at the event necessarily in front of everybody. But in the bathroom, you know, when you get out of your car, maybe just stand there, you know, even just 10, 15, 20 seconds of just standing this way, it opens you up. And that, in addition to this, which is the victory pose that you were putting over there, when we do this, and I think she also talks about this for, you know, a 2-minute period, it increases your testosterone, which is the hormone that gives you that, you know, energy to project and be aggressive, which we're not promoting aggressiveness, but assertiveness. And it lowers cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And so even doing this for, you know, 10 seconds, I already feel a little bit more open, a little more energized. It's like almost like the butterflies have more room to just stretch and they're not all, you know, bundled up and getting all in this twisted knot. And what they found was, and she talks about this in the talk, that this is a very instinctual way that we open ourselves up. They studied blind runners, like runners who have been blind since birth. And when they cross the finish line, they do this. So it's a very instinctual thing that's about power. So if you want to give yourself some of that power, that's something you can do in advance of going to that might give you a little bit of that extra confidence and surge. Any other questions or comments? Oops, yes?
Yeah, it was interesting when you talked about the fact that a lot of people think they're shy people that older they do they have autism or not. Because in my family, we do have autism spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And yet my son Nicholas, who's high functioning, loves people.
Mm-hmm.
He does need the downtime.
Yeah.
To step out and back, but he definitely would not ever want to be sitting somewhere and doing, not ever interacting, because Kids at school always seem to like him a lot. He's very outgoing in drama. But then he does need to step back and do his little quiet time on the computer or whatever. And
Yeah.
my kids have always realized that mom needs quiet time.
Yes. That's what's so empowering about all this. Like the more information we have, the more we can ask for what we want, and other people can understand it. Usually by the end of this kind of, not necessarily this presentation, but in talking about introverts and extroverts, I'll say somebody switches teams or a marriage is saved, because they'll say, okay, now I finally understand why my spouse needs more alone time or asks to go on a vacation by himself or a walk, or why she really wants to go out on a Friday night when all I want to do is crash on the couch. Because you have different ways of dealing with your need to recharge your batteries. And what I appreciate about what you just shared is that we can't ever make any assumptions either. And I'm also thinking of Jerry Seinfeld. There was just an article out that says he's on the autistic spectrum, and he's also an introvert. If you watch Seinfeld through that lens, you can totally see it. But nobody would say he doesn't like people or he's not good with people, but we can't judge the book by its cover, basically.
There's one more comment from online.
Yeah.
Laura Whitmore, who is watching online, says, I loved your analogy of the rock creating ripples in the water. That helped me visualize how to focus my energy and send out great influence. Thanks for a great presentation. I only found out on Facebook 10 minutes prior. I'm so happy.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. Woo-hoo. Yay. Everybody say yay for Laura. In just a couple minutes we have left, I would love to hear just anybody shout out any of this. I want you to think about it on your own, but the questions are about what's the most important thing you want to remember from what we've shared today, whether it's something I've shared or something that somebody from the group has shared. What's something that you're going to do to make your business development activities more effective or enjoyable? And what action are you committed to in the next 3 months? And how will you be accountable?
I have one for number one.
Okay.
I can remember the joy of curiosity.
Yes. Yeah. Asking questions. We all love, people just want to be seen and heard. That's our basic fundamental need. If you remember that going into any of these conversations, then, whether it's a networking, sales, whatever, then, then you just remember it's all about curiosity and seeing and hearing people. Thank you, Jennifer.
I think it came to the first slide on my website, it's all about me to be customer focused.
Nice. Yep. She said instead of the website being all about me, the first line is going to be customer focused. Love it. Thank you. It's good for all of us. Anyone else care to share either what they're taking away or what action you're going to take? Yeah.
The general concept of don't sell, educate.
Don't sell, educate.
If you're trying to figure out how to properly sell my services,
Mm-hmm.
and necessarily have to think about it.
Thank you. Yep. Educate, don't sell. Thank you. Yeah. Anyone else? I encourage you to think about this tonight. Go back to your notes while it's still kind of fresh. I know it's getting late, but the last thing I just want to leave you with is to think about selling with these 3 things. That it's about educating. So you are sharing a solution that you have. It's about connecting, finding that common ground. And it's about contributing, which is offering up ways to set somebody else up for success. If you put all of your emphasis on that customer, on that client, and think about how can I set them up for success, it takes the shift, it shifts the light off of you and puts it onto them and helps you show up more in service of them instead of worrying about what am I going to say about myself. So educating, connecting, and contributing. A few recommended resources. I mentioned, and you saw Dan Pink, To Sell is Human. A couple other books that I love, Enchantment by Guy Kawasaki. That one's very much about customer service. He defines enchantment as filling others with great delight. So think about in your business and how you're working with people, how can you fill others with great delight? What's a little bit above and beyond? Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. awesome book. I think every entrepreneur should read that book. The subtitle is Why Some Ideas Survive and Others Die. And they go through a specific kind of formula that they found where sticky ideas came to be. And a lot of it is very overlaps with Dan Pink's 6 pitches. Make your contacts count, and then power questions, build relationships, win new business, and influence others. That goes to the piece about curiosity. And then a few introvert books, Self-Promotion for Introverts by Nancy Ankowitz, Introvert Power by Lori Helgo, and then my own insight. And these are all listed on my website. And actually, I think all I have after this is a thank you. So I'll leave that up there if anybody wants to take a snapshot of it. You've got them for future reference. But thank you so much for your participation and your time. And it was a pleasure talking with you. Thanks.
And don't forget that Beth's books, this last one here, Insight, is on that back table, okay? Thank you.